Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to look at a couple of things, starting with duplicating sheet. Right now, we only have in this workbook one sheet, sheet 1. Let's say, for example, we decided to take Treasure Notes Bookstore International. We want to have a location in Toronto, let's say Lagos and Milan. And we want to create 3 different sheets within this workbook for each of the locations. We could create by going down to the bottom here, this plus sign, click on it to create a sheet, and then perhaps copy and paste here, or we could just start all over and start typing. Both methods are a little bit inefficient, so I'm going to delete this for a second. What we want to do is to duplicate this. So let's see how that is done. There are 2 ways to do that. So as I was saying, if I decide to make a duplicate of this, what I will have to do is to right click on sheet 1 down here, right click, and click move or copy, and then select move to end, or check create a copy, and then OK. And then what happens now, I have a duplicate of the first sheet. I can do that again. Let's do this again, move or copy one more time, and select move to the end, create a copy, OK. So I have 3 separate sheets of similar data. So what I want to do now is to rename all of them. To rename, I'm going to click on, actually before I do that, let me show you one more way of creating a duplicate. If I click on the sheet that I want to duplicate and I hold down my control key, I can drag to the right, and then as you see there, I've created additional sheet. Okay, we only need 3 sheets for now, so I'm going to delete this. Yes. Now to rename, I'll call this Toronto, and I'll call the next one, right click, rename, I'll call this Lagos, and the third one, rename, and I will call this Milan. Alright, there we go. Now we have 3 separate sheets under the same workbook, and they all have the data that we need for each of them. The reason why this is important is because I didn't want to start to create the data for each of the companies all over. Alright, so another thing we can do here, let's say we want to make a change across board, across all the different sheets. We want to make a change that will reflect changes in all the different documents for each of our locations, Toronto, Lagos, and Milan. What we can do is to hold down a control key and select all of them, and then we can make our change. Let's say we want to change printing paper to duct tips. Okay, and then we also want to change the price to $17. Okay, so now let's see if that change is reflected in all of them. Okay, I'm going to click on Toronto, and you can see duct tapes at $17. Lagos, duct tapes $17, and Milan, Shaw, duct tapes and $17. Now the next thing to look at here is to show you how to view this data. So we're talking about how to freeze pane. Freezing pane allows you to see a specific section of the data while you are scrolling. Let's say, for example, you want to see side by side the items against the unit sold. Of course, we can easily see here because the data is not a lot. But consider a situation where we have maybe month 1 to 12 and it's a lot of information on the screen. So that becomes very, very difficult to do. In any case, I will show you how to make sure that the unit sold or the subtotal is moved closer to the items so you can compare them side by side. All right, so what I want to do here is to click on the cell. Wherever I am on the cell, whichever cell is active, we freeze everything above and we freeze everything before. So this whole section will be frozen and this whole section will be frozen, so we can move this side as we want. So let's do that. Let's go to the view tab, I believe, and find the freeze panes, click on the drop down menu and then click freeze panes. Now if I scroll, you see I can move my items closer to the book items. Now I know that how much I pay for taxes is 1,550. It's very easy for me to see. If I scroll back, I only just want the subtotal. I can easily tell. I can scroll all back to the way it was before. Now what I can also do now, let's say that's not what I want, it's all good, but I want to unfreeze what I just did. I can go back to the drop down menu on the freeze panes and click on freeze pane. Now let me try to scroll again and see what happens. The freeze pane is gone. The other thing that you can do here is you can just go ahead without making any selection and go to freeze pane and click on freeze top row. If I do that and I try to scroll, see treasure notes book as the title will always remain. Let's go back and unfreeze that or freeze pane. So without freezing anything, let me scroll so that you see what happens. See, treasure note does not remain. It is scrolled into invisibility. Now another thing we can do is to freeze column. So freeze first column. If I click on that and I try to scroll to the right, the feedback column, column A, will always remain. Right? Okay, so now we know how to use the freeze pane icon. Let me unfreeze this. The next lesson I want to talk about is custom views. Freeze pane works. As you can see, it helps us to sort of compare certain aspects of our work side by side, but sometimes that's not enough. So we can then turn to something called custom views. Let's say, for example, we want to create different views for different people. So I'll show you what I mean. If we click on custom views, this dialog box comes up. We can click on add, and it wants us to name this view. This view right now, let's call it the original view because it has everything in it. Original view. Okay, and we click OK. So if we go to custom views again, you see now we have original view. All right, so let's do something else. Let's close this. Now we want to hide some sections of the work that we're doing, so we can only show a specific section. Let's say we want to show the items against the actual amount that we made, the subtotal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on these two columns, the home tab, and find the format cell, and then look for visibility, click on this arrow, and then I'm going to hide column, and that column will be hidden. The next thing to do is to select column D to I, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Hide, go to visibility, and then click hide column. Now what I have here is the items. Let me make this a little bit bigger. The items, the subtotal, as well as the taxes that were paid. In some cases, this is all we need. If you are the accountant of the company, there are some instances where all that is needed from you is how much you made and what taxes did you pay. This is how to streamline that document so you can send to whoever is requesting it. But we're not done yet. So let's go to the View tab and go to Custom Views, and then create a new view. We call this the Account View, and click OK. Alright, so now if we go back to Custom View, and we can toggle between Original View, Show, and then go back to Custom View again and go to Account View, Show. So we can move back and forth each of these two sections. So now let's go back to Custom Views, Original View, Show, and then continue to do our work. Okay, so let me allow you to catch up with me a little bit and then meet me on the other side. Okay, welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to spell check. In Microsoft Word, as you are typing, and some other Microsoft applications, as you are typing, if you make an error in spelling, it tells you right away, usually with a red line below it, to tell you that this spelling is incorrect. With Excel, it does not do that. You can initiate the spell check on your own by going to the Review tab and clicking on Spelling. Now, I have this dialog box that is asking me, do you want to continue checking at the beginning of the sheet? Yes, I want to do that. The reason it's asking me is because my cursor is actually on a cell that is down here, not at the beginning. If I say no, it will only spell check everything below this active cell. But I want to check everything, so I'm going to say yes. The spelling right here, when I look up here, it says feedback. The C is missing. So there's a suggestion for the correct spelling here. So I'm going to go ahead and click change. That's corrected. And there's another one. There's units, total units sold. Instead of units with an S, I spelled units with a Z. So I'm going to select the correct one here and click change. There's also another one down here, Saturday. So instead of the A is missing in the day. So there's a suggestion here as well, Saturday, change. There you go. Now I'm being informed that I am good to go. So I'm going to click OK. That is how to use the spell check. Lastly, for this lesson, the last thing I want to show you here, we are going to presume that we are done with our work for now and we want to print this work. How do we set it up for printing? We can go to File, Print, and then print to PDF or send to a particular printer if we have one connected to our work. We can make some minor changes here. For example, print entire workbook, or we can select an active area in a sheet to print, or we can print a specific selection if we've already done that. We can also change the orientation. We can select landscape or portrait. Right now it's portrait. We can select the type, letter type, tabloid, legal, and we can change the margins a little bit here. But the point is that this is not the best place to make these changes. I'm going to go back and go to page layout, and I'm going to go down here, the page setup command. If you notice here, we can do most of the things that I just showed you in the print section on that file. We can change our margins here as well. We can actually create a custom margin if we want. We can change our orientation, we can change the size, and so on. But I want to click on this little drop down here under the page setup command. Here is actually where you have all the information regarding setting up your print. If you've noticed already, orientation, we have portrait or landscape. We can choose either one here. We can adjust the scaling up to 100, which is right now is 76. We can make this 100, or we can fit to one page. Fitting to one page means that we squish everything into one page, irrespective of the size. What that means sometimes is that we can barely see what we've printed. So that is not always a good idea if you have a lot of information that is more than one page on your screen. So I'm going to click adjust to the normal size. Down here you can select the paper size, just like we saw before. You can select legal. Legal is usually good if you have a document, if you're printing a document that is longer in length as opposed to in height. And if you're not sure what it looks like, if I click on legal, I can click on print preview to see how it looks like, right? It doesn't cover everything. You can see that it covers most of it. Let's go back and go back to bring our dialog box. Sometimes you can change the quality of the print, but in this case I can. This is 600 dpi dot per inches. That tells you how thick the print will look on paper. 600 dpi is good enough, but in some cases you may be given the option to change this. Margins, we saw this before. You can, how much space between the text and the paper would you want to have in the top side of the paper, the left side, the right side, and the bottom side. You can increase this. The default is 7 inches, but you can increase this. You can also center your document on the page. If I click on horizontally, you see what happens here. Vertically, if I remove that, see what happens. So play with this a little bit and see how it works. Header and footer. The header and footer, you can add information there that runs across all the documents. You can make it as a page 1 of something, page 1 of something. You can actually put the name of the store, let's say Milan, or if it's a confidential document, you can say confidential. The footer is the same thing. You have the same information. You can put them there as well. Okay, and the last thing I want to look at here is the area that you want to print. Let's say you only want to print the total units sold. I have to click on, so you have to click on the print area and then select the total units, total units sold, subtotal, and taxes, and it will be selected here. If I click print preview now, that's all I'm going to print. Okay, so that's how, once you've set this up, then you can go ahead to file and then print your document. I know this was a little bit long. I want you to go over everything. We started by looking at how to duplicate the different sheets and how to group them by selecting all of them and making changes that reflect all the sheets without having to do them one after the other. We also talked about how to freeze pane so you can only see certain sections of the document. We looked at custom views. We created new customs. We had the account view and the original view. And then we looked at how to spell check our document, because Excel does not do it by default for us. And lastly, we looked at how to set our page for printing by going to the page layout and clicking on this drop down to select our parameters for printing. All right, this was a lengthy one. I wanted to go over it and meet me on the other side.